Hello and welcome back to Bite Size Boxing. So, next weekend, Oleksandr Usyk faces Daniel Dubois in Wembley Stadium in an undisputed heavyweight title match. But what if Daniel Dubois pulls off the upset? Now, the reason I say that is because this feels like something that not enough people are asking, and there are ramifications not just for the heavyweight division but for boxing as a whole if this upset happens. Now, allow me to explain. We've had the old guard, Fury, Wilder, Joshua, Usyk, all very clearly on their way out. Usyk is the last one hanging on and has become the number one of his era. And I want to cast your minds back to 2015, October 2015 if I'm not mistaken, when Tyson Fury went to Dusseldorf and defeated long-time reigning heavyweight champion Vladimir Klitschko, which ushered in a new era of heavyweight boxing, where we got to see the Joshuas, the Furies, the Wilders, later the Usyks, and it ushered in a brilliant and a beautiful heavyweight era that we have all enjoyed. We've seen great matchups. We've seen obviously the contenders, the Luis Ortiz, the Dillian Whites, the Joseph Parkers, the Zhili Zhangs. It has been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful era of heavyweight boxing that we've been so lucky to enjoy. But that starts to come to an end. That's been coming to an end for a few years now. That's been fading out, and the last man standing is Oleksandr Usyk. So he will either go out on top or the final man will fall. And what does that mean for heavyweight boxing? That means we are in a new era if this happens. You see, if Daniel Dubois wins this fight, in many ways it would be sad because it would signify a very clear end to that last heavyweight era, but in many ways it would be good. And the reason it would be good is because it would give legitimacy to this new heavyweight crop coming through. You see, this has been the problem previously in eras, is that if, a bit like what happened with Lennox Lewis retired after beating Vitali, obviously on cuts, slightly controversially, but he deserved to win that fight in my opinion. But anyway, he retired and there was no real heir apparent. You had the Klitschkos, but again, the Klitschkos, Vitali for example, he'd already lost to the last heavyweight era. So how legitimate are these Klitschko brothers? And the Klitschko brothers wrestled with that tag for the entirety of their reigns. Of course, it didn't help that the eras that they reigned in were not particularly strong at all. But it meant that because they hadn't beaten the last great people of their previous era, there was no clear definition between the last era and the continuing era. Which meant that when Vitali and Vlad ruled over the division, it was just one of them ones. Whereas when Fury went and beat Vlad, that was the end of this era, and here starts a new lineage. And this is what Daniel Dubois has the opportunity to do. He has the opportunity to legitimize and start a whole new lineage where we will see the Jalalovs come through, the Moses Ataumas come through, the Richard Torreses have come through, and all of these other new, fresh heavyweights coming through, and they will be legitimized. Even people who are coming in who kind of blur the lines, who come through, the Ajit Kabayels who sort of blur from the old era to the new era, we'll have these guys coming through. And so, in my opinion, it would actually be a net positive if Daniel Dubois was able to pull this off, because again, it would legitimize this new era. And then you have a very clear defined mark between where the old era started, the old era ended, and this new era begins. In my opinion, the reason why this is such an important aspect of this new era is because the previous era, what helped define it was these fighters' popularity. You have somebody like Anthony Joshua, who wasn't just the most popular boxer in Britain for a while, he was the most popular athlete in Britain. And the eyes that brought to the sport, the popularity that brought to the sport was absolutely essential for its survival. Now you compare that, conversely to like the Klitschko era and it's apples and oranges. And again, even that legitimacy of Joshua knocking out Klitschko, Fury going and ripping those titles away in Dusseldorf, that helped legitimize this era. So if Dubois is able to go out there and rip the titles off of Usyk, that then means that there are going to be more eyes on this era, which means say for example an Atalma goes in there later on and beats a Dubois, they'll be going, well, this Atalma guy, he's serious because he beat the guy that beat Usyk, and we all know how good Usyk is, right? That's why that's so important. Because if Dubois ends up losing twice or takes a knee again against Usyk, and then say some of the contenders that come through, they then beat Dubois later on, and say Dubois picked up a vacant title by then or whatever, well, who cares? He's the guy that lost twice to the other, the old guard, and the old guard was so much better than this new crop. So who cares about this new crop? These are just belt holders. They've got nothing on the Wilders of the world or the Furies of the world. God, oh, we need an old champion like Usyk back. That will be the narrative. So if one of these guys can come along and knock off an Usyk, that will legitimise this new era, and that will be so, so important going forward, not just for this year, for next year, but for the next decade going forward. Because if that doesn't happen, if, say, a Dubois doesn't beat an Usyk, what will happen is that these new heavyweights, fairly or unfairly, will just not get the public support that they probably otherwise deserve, because they will just be deemed as an inferior knockoff version of the era that predated them. You let me know what you think. Maybe you think I'm wrong on this. Maybe you think I'm right on this. I'd be very, very interested to know, and I'd love to know your takes as well. Thank you very much. You take it easy, guys. Cheers. Thank you very much.